So for the people who don't know you, do you want to say like your name and where you're from and stuff about you?
So I'm Beccy. I'm the front person of the Riot Grrrl band Rose Rage. And I'm usually based in Berlin. And I'm in Los Angeles now to play some shows, which I'm really excited about. Yeah, because I've never played in LA, but I have a strong connection to California. I love it here. I have many friends here and I've been here several times. So I feel really honored to be able to play here.
What's the scene kind of like in Berlin?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So the scene in Berlin is way smaller. I feel it's a bit more niche to be in a band than it is here. Like I have the impression that rock music is more important in the US as well as in the UK, you know, where I think more people start bands and like play instruments. In Germany, the mainstream, like main scene is built around electronic music. So I think if you type in like DJ Berlin, Google might crash, you know? Like there's so many like people playing electronic music or being DJs. And so I think the scene is definitely like smaller. And I would say that it's a bit like here where you have like bigger commercial venues, then you have like DIY venues, which are usually ex-squats. And that are usually the places that I love playing because I feel the vibe there is really good. It's very like non-pretentious, mostly also inclusive. You know, there are some collectives like your collective that take care of like inclusion and love working with people who are not cis male, you know, who are more inclusive in that sense. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a smaller scene, but we have a lot of venues.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, there are a lot of venues to play at. And, you know, like the punk houses, the ex-squats, they become less and less. But the ones that are still around host shows. And it's always the best vibe there. You know, I find it very real, non-pretentious. Like people come to have fun. I feel very often in Berlin, people at shows might be a bit stiff. You know, I try to be funny on stage and I look around and it's only my friends laughing.
Yeah.
Like my friends in the crowd and everyone else just stands there. So that's why I like these punk shows, like the punk houses. I feel the kids there really come to have fun and it really feels like, the vibes are great, I think, at these shows usually.
Good. How long have you been making music?
I've been playing music since I was 19, so for about 20 years now. I'm 38 years old. And I started off as a singer-songwriter as well. So I would play acoustic guitar and write songs, like slower songs. Had a MySpace back then. So I did like a couple of like living room shows back then. But I realized that I really wanted to be in a band, like if possible a Riot Grrrl band. It's what influenced me a lot when I was a teenager, you know, which gave me like, I think maybe it also was, like seeing Riot Grrrl bands or finding out about that genre and scene is kind of what made me pick up an instrument because it empowered me. And I wanted to give that empowerment back to other people who are not cis male, you know?
Exactly.
It took some years until I found band members who I could be in a band with. I was in another Riot Grrrl band before. We were called Cock Block. You can actually find us on Bandcamp. And then, my bandmate back then moved away to another city. And they said I could continue playing the songs and being in the band, but it just felt sad doing it without them. So I basically then started like writing my own songs, kind of like more punkish, faster songs.
Yeah.
And I formed Rose Rage.
Do you have like specific band members that play with you every time?
Yeah, right now I'm playing with an amazing person from Chile. My drummer is called Pablo, and we've been playing together for more than a year now. Yeah, we don't have a bass player at the moment. So we've been playing a lot of shows like just the two of us, which was good fun or is good fun. Honestly, like, I find it really hard to find bassists for some reason. Actually, super surprised because, I made 2 posts on Craigslist before coming here. In one, I was looking for bass players, and in the other one, I was looking for drummers. And that's about a month ago. And so the ad on Craigslist for the drummers, for that ad, I still get responses. And I got maybe like 30, 35, but I only got like 5 responses from bassists. That's a common problem, I feel, right?
Yeah.
Like usually people need drummers,
Yeah.
right? Drummers are usually
You need a good drummer too. That's a big thing for sure.
It's
Especially for
true.
faster music. Like the drummers have to be on point and like able to play fast but keep a tempo, which is really difficult. Like I
True.
tried to learn drums for a long time. I just never got it. Because it's really hard. Like you have to use all your limbs, and I'm like, how do I make all my limbs do different things at the same time?
No, I know that feeling. Like before you sit down behind a drum kit, you're like, I'm in control of my limbs. And then you sit there and you're like, no, I'm actually not. You know, I need to kind of like learn to have control over every different body part sort of. Yeah, and I can relate to that. I feel a lot of it is muscle memory.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Like in the beginning, it's kind of a struggle. So I started playing drums as well 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And I took lessons for 2 years, and that helped a lot. But I feel now I kind of stagnated. Like I know the basics, and I could play like a classic like punk beat or something. But I'm definitely not super good at it. I think I still need to kind of go a bit deeper.
So is guitar your main instrument?
It is, yeah. Guitar is my main instrument.
And do you play anything else other than guitar and drums?
Yeah, I write bass lines, but I'm not a bassist. You know, like I kind of like I wrote some songs for the band on bass. Maybe you remember Rock Creep?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that song is just written on bass, basically.
That's cool. When did Rose Rage start up?
I started the band in 2019. We played one show in Berlin in December 2019. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And we were on a break for a year and a half because the drummer I used to play with wasn't comfortable playing shows in the beginning for quite a while. And so that's why we kind of like put the playing live on hold. And then we've been playing a lot of shows since early 2022, I think.
Nice. And mainly in Berlin?
Yes, mainly in Berlin. Like we played lots of shows in Berlin, but I also organized like a little DIY Europe tour. We played in Luxembourg, in the Netherlands, in France.
Nice.
And yeah, we played actually in a squat in France, which was cute. Yeah.
And what was that like? Like, did you see any differences in the scenes in different parts of Europe?
That's really interesting. Well, you know, that squat gig was at that time probably our biggest gig. There were like, I don't know, 300, 400 people there. And the crowd really seemed to be into it. You know, it was kind of like a little bit like the show you set up where it's like it started like in the evening and there were like 5, 6 bands from different places. And it was all punk bands. So yeah, I feel the people there were really like into it. I don't know if I can say there's like a difference. Maybe I kind of lack a bit like the amount of shows I play to compare, you know? Like I haven't played enough shows outside of Berlin to compare the vibe.
In Germany or in Berlin, did you believe that like a Riot Grrrl band was necessary for the scene? Or did you just make Riot Grrrl music because that's what you liked?
Yeah, I feel I never really thought about like how relevant it is for the scene. I just started a Riot Grrrl band because it's like what I feel the most, you know? Like I feel I can be 100% me when I'm doing this. I feel like I, as an artist, or as a musician, have a certain responsibility.
Yeah.
For me, it's not just like, oh, I want to be unpolitical. This is all about fun. Of course, it's also fun and I want to have fun, you know? But at the same time, I think it's important to deliver a message if you have the chance to.
What bands were big influences to you when you first started making music?
I always find that so hard to answer because, you know, as a music geek, you probably know that feeling. You like so much music and so many bands that it's hard to kind of like just mention a couple of them because then you don't do the other bands justice, you don't mention. So big influences on me were definitely like Sonic Youth. I love them. I used to love grunge when growing up. You know, I love L7, I love Nirvana, I love Hole, Bikini Kill, of course.
Yeah.
You know?
Classic.
And I think one of my favorite Riot Grrrl bands is probably Brat Mobile.
Me too.
Yeah?
I love Bratmobile so much.
Cool, I'm so happy you like them too. I feel they're a bit underground in a sense, right?
Yeah, a lot of people.
Especially these days,
A lot of people don't know about them, but I always like anyone who's into Riot Grrrl, I'm like, you need to listen to Bratmobile because that's like number one for me for sure.
What about Team Dresh? Do you pronounce them like that?
I haven't heard of them.
I think they're from Olympia, and they were very active in the 90s.
What is a favorite memory you have from a show that you played?
That's a good one. Favorite memory. I mean, it's maybe not one favorite memory, but I think it's always beautiful when friends come out and support and you get to hang out with them before and after the show, you know? It's more like something that like repeats itself, and it's not like one specific moment, but I feel it always gives me like a lot of confidence to know that there are people out there who have love for me while I'm on stage, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not just like complete strangers that I'm performing in front of. So yeah, that's something that I think, gives me like a lot of joy, you know, to have like loved ones in the crowd.
What is your songwriting process kind of like?
I like to spice things up a bit. So usually I don't sit down and I'm like, oh, let's see what comes flowing out of me, you know, because it's what flows out of me is usually very emotional. It's more like singer-songwriter stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of still write these songs, but not necessarily for Rose Rage. So for Rose Rage, I pick a topic. I'm like, okay, this topic, we're writing about this now. And then I try to, build up the song around the topic. And then it's either that I have like a kind of a line from like the lyrics first. And I think, oh, this sounds good. And we build it, like I build it up on the lyrics. Or I start instrumentally. It's either that I have like a cool drum beat where I'm like, let's build a song around this, or I start with a guitar line. There's, for example, this one song, Tinder Opening Lines, that I try to do things a bit differently, like when it comes to the writing. So, you know, I'm not on Tinder anymore, or I'm actually pansexual. Like I was dating like all sorts of people, but like often when you're on these dating apps and you know, you kind of like say you're a female, it often suggests you men, you know, which really sucks because I'm like, you know,
I don't want them.
I
don't want
people
them.
exactly don't want them. Exactly. And so on Tinder, it's especially awful because like once you match, they can write you. Yeah. And so I collected all the horrible real Tinder opening lines that people sent me and made that the verse. And then in the bridge and the chorus, just give my own statement to it, you know? Yeah. And it was like gruesome, like disgusting things where it's like so obvious that they don't see like, you know, whoever's female as a human being, but just like as a piece of meat, you know? I try to find alternative ways of writing songs, you know, to like spice things up.
Yeah. What are some other topics that you've written about?
Other topics that I've written about are, for example, rock creeps, then like a very current topic since yesterday was Valentine's Day. I wrote a song about dating myself. You know, I feel like I've not been very lucky with like relationships. Yeah, I mean, I had maybe one good relationship in my life. It's so hard, I think, right? To find someone who you're compatible with. So I don't like this idea that like we as humans, we're always being told that like if we're alone, we're just one half of a person. We're still missing our second half or whatsoever, you know?
Yeah.
I think that, you know, we should celebrate friendship more and we should celebrate ourselves and I believe in self-love. So I wrote a song about dating myself. Then Zombie Nation is just a song about like the general issues I see or a bit like the anxieties I feel when it comes to being a human in this world. There's the song 666, which actually is about a toxic relationship. Yeah, I like to keep it very like classic Riot Grrrl topics, you know, kind of like political and definitely like feminist issues are issues that I like to write about.
Have you ever experienced sexism specifically in the music scene?
Yes, very often. I remember once at a show, this guy comes up to me after the show and he's like, hey, what's your breasts? They're gonna fall out of your dress. You know, I was like, usually I'm not so easily like perplexed when someone like, you know, usually I always have like something to say, but that really caught me off guard because it was my own show.
Yeah.
And I was like, who's going to say something like that to you?
Yeah.
Fortunately, a cute friend was there. And she was like, oh, you got to watch out or your eyes are going to fall out of your head. Along the lines.
That's a good one.
Oh, I'm so glad you're there. I'm backing me up. So this happened. Or once I played a show with a non-binary bassist and a male drummer. And we kind of like go into the venue and there's the sound guy and he completely ignores me. He just talks to the other band members, which is also ironic because like one of them is not even like male, they're non-binary, you know what I mean? But like to them, he probably, like the sound guy read them as male. Like he was probably like, oh, these are the guys in the band, and the girl is just like carrying like gear for the guys. I don't know what he was thinking, you know? And so at some point I was like, hey, I'm actually in the band as well. And then we started like doing sound
Having to
check.
tell him that you're in the band is crazy. What?
I know. I know, that was so weird because he could just ask.
Yeah.
Right? He could be like, hey, so who's doing what in the band or who's in the band, right? But then we did sound check, and while we sound checked, instead of telling me that he wanted me to change something on my amp, he basically just came over and changed it himself and started fumbling around, took the distortion out. Where I was like, hey, I need this distortion. Can you please just tell me what to do instead of like fumbling around on my amp? Yeah, I feel like at almost every show there are incidents. Yeah, another show we played with these dudes. And back then I was playing with a female bassist. And so we were using, like, that was actually nice of the guys that they let us use their amps that night. You know, it was in a punk house, like in a squat. And so the guys in the band were really condescending to us. Like the guitarist was really condescending to me when he explained me how to use the amp. And the bassist was really condescending to my bassist, you know, when explaining her how to use the amp. And just things like that. Like, I don't know. It definitely is like, yeah, forms of sexism, but, you know, like I tried to, you know, just not think about it too much in that moment, you know, because that could totally kill the vibe. Yeah.
Absolutely. And a lot of the time I feel like it's not even, like they're not even trying to be sexist. It's just like they're so ignorant that they are like, oh, well, she's a girl. Obviously, she's not going to know how to do this.
Exactly.
And it's like, what are you, like, you need to actually grow up and like figure out the world right now. Like, what are you talking about? And it's, like, if I was a man or, like, if I was perceived as a man, they would not treat me like that. Like, that's what I always think is, like, if I didn't look like a girl, you wouldn't be treating me like this. Like, that's the crazy part.
It is super crazy.
Do you ever experience people misconstruing your message?
I guess so. You know, like, I see myself as an ethical slut. And when you talk to people about this, you maybe know the book, The Ethical Slut. So The Ethical Slut is a book which has been written, I think, like 10, 15 years ago by some sexual therapists in San Francisco. And it's about like polyamory, open relationships, and how to like maybe have relationships outside of this like monogamous norm, you know? And when talking to people about this, especially people that are read as men, like cis men, very often when you tell them like, you know, I see myself as an ethical slut, they're like, oh, then that means like you want to have sex with everyone. And it's like, no, this is not what it's about. You know, I feel people don't understand this reclaiming of certain words. And it's also different if they call you that or if you say it about yourself, right?
Do you throw shows as well, or do you like just play shows that other people book you for?
Sometimes there are venues where they ask us to set up shows in the sense that we get to invite bands.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so there are a couple venues like that, but it's not as common. I feel usually we get booked right away with other bands.
Yeah. What are some other bands that you tend to throw on lineups with you?
Okay, so actually I would like to promote here my friend from Leipzig. Leipzig is a city in Eastern Germany where like my friend Tarsi lives. So Tarsi is also in a Riot Grrrl grunge band. They're really cool. They're called the Heroin Horse. And she really sounds a bit like Courtney. I feel like her voice is very similar. And so my friend Tarsi has this booking agency called Fight Like a Girl Booking. And so I love when they book us, for example. You know, when she books us and we get to play in Leipzig or like we get to play shows in Berlin for her booking agency. But so far we have actually never played together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there was, for example, another cute band from Denmark we played with. They're called A Mess. That's also a concert that Tarsi actually organized. So Tarsi is also really inclusive in her booking and likes to book not just like male artists, you know?
Most of the songs you write, do you write them in German or in English?
That's a great question. So I've only written one song in German for the band. And it's not part of the set here because, we only had 2 weeks to learn the set.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like an 8-song set. And all the songs I write are in English, actually. I find it easier to write in English. Maybe because all the music I consumed, or most of the music I consumed, has always been in English. So it kind of hits closer to home,
Do most people in Germany also speak English?
In Berlin, for sure, because Berlin is super international.
Okay.
You have a lot of people from all over the world moving there. And very often, these people don't speak German. So I think in Berlin, yes. And in the big cities as well. But on the countryside, not so much. I think everything is more German.
Yeah.
If you're like in smaller towns or something.
When you play shows, do you play with like a lot of people from different countries, or is it mainly other bands from Berlin?
It really depends on the occasion. Usually, it's very often bands from Berlin. Yeah, it's kind of smaller bands from Berlin, usually. It's smaller as we are small, like not like, kind of not really big bands. Once we had a show lined up with a bigger band from Canada. They're called Mobina Galore, and they are a bit more famous, but then what happened? Someone got sick, I think, and we couldn't go. Like, that would have been outside of Berlin, and that would have been our biggest show so far.
Yeah.
Like, we were supporting this band from Canada, but yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't play that gig. Usually, it's like smaller bands we play with.
And then most of your recorded music is on Bandcamp, right?
Exactly. All my songs that I've recorded are on Bandcamp. And some of the music can also be found on, I think, Apple Music and all the like standard platforms.
Yeah.
And Spotify and stuff.
Is there a reason you like prefer Bandcamp? Or do you prefer Bandcamp?
Yes, I do definitely prefer Bandcamp. And I prefer it because I find it fairer on the musician side. I think Bandcamp seems to care more about bands. I really dislike Spotify. I only have 2 songs on Spotify, and I don't have an account because I definitely do not want to support Spotify. And I love Bandcamp not just for like me as a musician to upload band, but also to discover bands.
Yeah. What are like some of your favorite local bands?
Some of my favorite local bands. We played with this one band called Papst. It means Pope in German. And I discovered them while playing with them. And I was blown away. I'm like, what is this? Like, why are they so good? I basically, after the show, I went up to the singer and said, "You're too good to be from nowadays." Because I kind of always feel that music was better up until the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Maybe it's also because I'm a bit older. And that's maybe what old people do say, like, oh, everything was better when I was younger, But I think the quality has definitely is not the same of bands anymore. And so that was a band I really like. And then Heroin Horse, the Heroin Horse is a band that I really love. And not just because my friend is in it, but just because it's like very pure grunge Riot Grrrl.
Earlier you had mentioned that there's kind of like a right-wing movement almost taking over in Germany. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, we can definitely talk about that. So in Germany, we have this one party, Die Alternative für Deutschland, which means alternative for Germany. That's the name of the party. And they arose in the last 8 to 10 years, I think. And in the beginning, they were voted into our parliament with a minimum of 5%.
Yeah.
You need to have a 5%, I think, minimum to get voted into the parliament to be able to take decisions. And what's really scary is that these days they're at 20%. So 1/5 of the population is willing to go right wing. We have a left-wing party called the Left Party. Very creative, I know. And so I was really shocked when 4 years ago, the Left Party had I think 1 percentage less than this right-wing party. And so, the left votings or the Left Party gets less and less votes every 4 years. And this party gets more and more. And that's something that's really scary to me. That officially now we have more racists than left people in Germany.
Yeah. And are there any movements that are working against the right wing?
I guess yes, there's, especially these days, a lot of people go out on the street to, to protest against the genocide in Palestine.
Yeah.
And I feel all of this also is kind of like, a kind of a step against, right-wing parties.
Yeah.
When you say we don't want a genocide, we
Yeah.
want more inclusion.
Which is like that's like common knowledge. Like, I just don't understand why it's even a debate.
Right? How like people can debate, is this a genocide or not? Like, obviously it is,
Yeah.
right?
Like, I know in America specifically, there's a lot of pro-Israel propaganda because America works very closely with Israel. Like, we provide billions of dollars in like military funds. Joe Biden, our current president, like gave them billions of dollars this year for like their militia. And it's also like there's billboards all around Los Angeles. You might have even seen one where it says like Hamas is your problem too. And it like talks about how like Hamas is going to come get you or whatever. Like, do you have any sort of like is your government kind of propagandizing pro-Israel beliefs?
Yes, very much so. And it goes even like deeper. Like, there's a big problem in Germany right now with left people being divided too, because some left people believe that lies, like I have, there's this one person I know who got really offended, after seeing all my stories because I was talking about the genocide openly and posting things about what's going on in Palestine. And so he was telling me, if you continue doing this, you're basically giving the Hamas the right to kind of get stronger, and we need to support Israel so that the Hamas doesn't take over the rest of the world.
That's
and
such
I'm like,
crazy. Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, this is so insane that even like left people these days have like this division in Germany,
And it's honestly like I can't even blame them because there's so much propaganda being put out by every government. But it's literally made to brainwash you.
Exactly.
So anyone who's falling for it, like I just feel bad for them. Like, I can't be mad at them because it's not their fault. It's the fault of our government for pushing that propaganda.
Yeah, but Germany is a bit like the U.S. In the sense that we have blood on our hands. We produce the guns, we produce munition, we produce like tanks we send over. Not we, but like the German government or Germany does, And that's something that I find really, really scary. That also I think in Germany it's connected with kind of reparational guilt as well, due to the Holocaust and the atrocities that have been going on during the Holocaust.
Yeah.
I think you can tell that, like, it's this reparational guilt that turns into an anti-Muslimic kind of mindset where it's like, oh, we need to be like super against anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And that leads people to be like, yeah, but we don't need to protect Arabs or Turkish people, like we have very big Arab and Turkish communities in Germany. And I feel since the 6th of October, it's probably really, really tough to be, and to have an Arab background or a Turkish background in Germany. So I was born in Western Germany, close to Cologne and Düsseldorf. It's kind of bigger cities there, closer to the Netherlands and Belgium. And so this is an area of a lot of immigration since the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
So I feel that area, there are always like neo-Nazis like burning like houses and so on. Like, this is something that happens every couple of years. You read it in the news and it happens everywhere in Germany. But I think the most racist parts are actually it's a bit like here, the South.
Yeah.
The South is more traditional, like more religious and more racist. And there are areas, I think, in Eastern Germany that are quite racist. And I think Berlin is actually quite racist too. My day job is being a German teacher. And so I talk to my students about their experiences they have as a foreign person in Germany. And I've heard really disgusting, nasty stories. And I myself have also witnessed racism on the street or in public transport. And I would also always like step up for the people who are victims of racism, But what makes me really sad then is that often it's just me. I have one beautiful story. Once there was like, we were in this crowded bus and there was this racist man in there saying something about like women with a headpiece, with a headscarf. And there was like not just me, but lots of others on the bus being like, we don't want any racists on this bus. Get the fuck out. We kind of kicked him out of the bus. You know, we kind of like yelled until he left. And this doesn't happen so often, unfortunately. I think in Germany, we have a lot this mentality of looking away, you know, where it's like if something happens, oh, I don't want to be bothered with this, I look away. I feel that's different in other countries, but it's something that I actually really mind about Germany.
What about like sexism? Do you find that Berlin is also sexist in that way?
So yeah, it is definitely like there's definitely sexism, but it's not like in Barcelona. I used to live in Barcelona, Spain. I feel it's really bad. It's really severe there. Like I think as a person who's not like read as a male going out on the street, so many men feel entitled to make comments about your body, to kind of over sexualize you, you know, to constantly like call you things like being like, hey pretty lady. And it's like, what's the point of this? I think living there, I got really angry, you know, and I feel it's not that bad in Berlin. Like, I feel if people come from countries where people are really shy and almost don't communicate with each other, I've heard that they find the sexism bad in Berlin. And so I found it really, really bad in Barcelona. And it made me become really angry and more feminist, which is good.
How long did you live there for?
I lived there for 2 years almost before moving to Berlin. And before that, I lived in Sweden for a while.
Yeah. Did you go to college?
I did. I studied in Cologne.
Where's that?
So Cologne is in Western Germany. It's close to Belgium and the Netherlands, like very, very west, almost like bordering with the Netherlands and Belgium.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have one sister who's a bit younger.
Is she also into music or art?
No, unfortunately not. I always had this dream that like my sister has like really long brown hair. And I had this dream that she'd become a metal drummer and then we can start a band together, you know? And I would see her like shaking her hair, like her long brown hair.
Yeah.
But no, she's not playing music, unfortunately. She loves music, but she's not playing any.
What does she do?
So she's a social worker like these days. She works in a refugee asylum kind of camp where refugees like live for a while. And she works in the office there and helps people who are refugees in Germany.
Yeah. And you said you were a German teacher?
Yeah, among other things. Like I'm also a copywriter, but also a writer, you know. I love writing and a translator and a German teacher.
How long have you been a teacher?
Actually, for half of my life. I think it was the first job that I did as a teenager. I started like mentoring, you know, other
cool.
kids.
What, do you teach like a certain grade?
No, I don't really teach in school. I teach in companies these days. And I'm the German teacher in the companies, and I have private students that I work with.
That's cool. And so you're mainly like doing freelance kind of work?
Exactly. I'm only doing freelance kind of work. So in Berlin, life also got more expensive, but it can't compare to life here. If things continue like picking up in Germany like they have done here, I might not be able to continue being a freelancer for many years, but for now I can afford it, fortunately.
Yeah. How long have you been living in Berlin?
Oh, way too long. I've been living there for 12 years, I think. And I really feel ready to move on.
Yeah.
But I don't know where to go next, actually.
So like you've been kind of moving around a lot kind of your whole life.
Yeah, ever since I was 19. When I was 19, I went to New Zealand for a year. And then I came back and studied in southern Germany, which I didn't like at all, you know, because I felt it was really conservative there.
Yeah.
And I really felt like a misfit there. I felt really uncomfortable there. Then I studied in Cologne, and then I started moving around Europe and ended up in Berlin, actually.
Would you ever consider moving to like LA?
Honestly, I would love to, but it's so hard. Like the legality of it, you know, to just get a visa. I think it's really hard when you're not in a position where you're needed. Let's say I was a techie and like ultra specialized, or maybe like a chemist or whatever, you know, something like if I had like an extreme specialization, then I might be able to work here because they would need me.
Yeah.
But, you know, being a punk musician / teacher, they're like, no, get out of here, Becky, go back home. You know?
How long are you staying in LA?
So I'm flying out on the 1st of April. And so after the gig next week, I'll be going up to the Bay Area on Sunday for some days. And then I'm coming back down. And on the 6th of March, I'm playing at Art Bar, LA.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play a show there. And then I'm actually off for some weeks, and then I would like to travel either to NOLA or Mexico.
Cool. Do you like to travel a lot?
I do, but since the pandemic, I've been stuck a bit. Like most people, right? Like I talked to a lot of friends here and they said the same thing where it's like, oh, ever since 2020, I've not been traveling much.
Yeah.
So this is my first big trip and I'm enjoying every second of it. I feel like, I don't know if you know that feeling that sometimes when you're abroad and away from home, you feel like your best version, your best self, right? And this is how I always feel when I'm here. I really enjoy the vibe of the people here, you know?
Yeah.
I feel people here are really easy to talk to. You know, I'm friendly and Berlin is very rude sometimes.
Yeah.
It can easily break your spirit, but you shouldn't let yourself be broken by it. Yeah. I feel like sometimes having small talk with people is just a way of caring, you know, caring for each other. And I like that here, that people are really like down to talk and chat. And
yeah, it's very open in that way. Does Germany, like, do you guys have any like thoughts about what America is?
Yes. Yeah, one stereotype people have of Americans, like North Americans, is that they say, oh, people from the U.S. are very shallow. And I'm like, shallow? I don't know. Like, they're friendly. Like, they care about each other. You're definitely rude to each other. Is that better? They would say, like, how they say hello and whatsoever. It's also friendly, so nice, but it's shallow. It's superficial. And I'm like, I don't think so. This is a stereotype.
I feel like shallowness in the U.S. too kind of is like Americans focus a lot on making money because we're like a capitalist country. But it's also like we're kind of forced to do that. Like if I didn't have to work, I would not be working. But if I don't work, I will literally die because they don't care about like people who are houseless. A lot of the people too, like when they see homeless people on the street, they'll just be like, well, they just didn't work hard enough. Like if you worked harder, you wouldn't be homeless. And that is not how it works. Like capitalism forces you to kind of sell your soul to like make money, and you have to work 40 hours a week if you want to be able to even like halfway afford a place to live, and you'll have to have like 8 roommates and like basically not even be able to eat unless you're getting like the cheapest food possible. So yeah, definitely like Americans focus on money. A lot has to do with the capitalist infrastructure that we're forced to live under. But yeah, it's definitely something I hate about living here.
No, I hear you. It's like, I feel the US is probably the most capitalist country I've ever been to.
Yeah.
But this being said, I'm also from a capitalist country. You know, it's not like Germany is not like a socialist dream, and it's becoming less and less socialist. You know, we still have a welfare state. We still have money for people who cannot or do not want to work. But this being said, our center, which is also becoming more and more right-wing, is thinking about, you know, making sure this is not happening in the future.
Yeah.
So we're going in a more capitalist way, you know, which I find really nasty, especially in a first world country. I mean, that thing first world, but in a rich country.
Yeah.
In one of the richest countries in the world, it shouldn't be like this, you know?
Do you guys have like a large like homeless population in Germany?
I mean, I thought it was always way worse here than it is in Germany. But since 2020, it's been the same pretty much. I mean, I don't know the numbers, you know?
Yeah.
But since 2020, there have been so many people living in the streets, like living on the streets. And it's been changing a lot ever since then, I feel. Like you see, like here where people live like in tents, it's definitely not the same anymore. Like it's definitely becoming more and more, and it's sad, it's horrible, you know, that our governments do not care, because they obviously do not care.
Yeah. And like they have the money, obviously. They're giving billions of dollars to Israel right now. Like maybe you could focus on helping the people in your own country.
Exactly. Yeah. I just saw yesterday they're giving, like the US is also giving money to the Ukraine as well as, you know, as Germany. Like, so both countries are really big on funding wars, but helping its own people seems to be like impossible, or like it's just not like on their agenda, I feel. Right?
Yeah, it's more so like every man for himself kind of mentality.
Exactly. It's like we need working class consciousness. And I feel this is an issue we have these days, that a lot of people don't have that consciousness anymore, you know? Like I read Marx and Engels when I was like a teenager, and I feel it really did something to me, you know? Like it really shaped like how I saw the world. And I think we as working class should have solidarity with each other, because only then we can change something. And I feel these days the society is very split. It's divided by media and governments because they're realizing that we are too many, and that if we kind of get together, we can actually dismantle the system and change it, right?
Yeah.
And I feel this is why we're distracted and kind of divided, and kind of like set up against each other. Like this is happening everywhere.
Do you have any like new music that you're working on that you might be coming out with?
Yes, I'm actually working on my first album at the moment. So I've been songwriting over the past couple of months, and I can't wait to rent a guitar here, hopefully tomorrow, so I can continue songwriting. Yeah, so I'm writing on material, and I hope that by May, June, I can start recording my debut album.
So you're playing March 6th at the Art Bar.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you're playing next Friday at Non Plus. I'm so excited that you're going to be playing too, because when you messaged me, I was like freaking out. I was like, Riot Grrrl from Berlin, Germany. Like, this is like insane. I was so excited to be able to throw a show with you.
Amazing. Like it goes both ways. Like I was super excited to hear back from you because I looked at several collectives, and you were my favorite one, because I felt it really reminds me of some collectives I've worked with in Germany.
Yeah.
And I feel we have like similar goals, sort of, our like kind of goals, and like maybe our political ideas really line up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah,
that's
even
why I
from
was
this
so happy,
conversation.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm so excited. Seriously, like thanks so much for considering us.
Absolutely.
Having us on the bill that night. Yeah.
So who's going to be playing with you on Friday?
So far it's just going to be Taylor from Santa Clarita. She's super sweet. She's really kind, and it's going to be her first gig. You know, she's never played a gig before.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this. She's like a sick drummer. She's really loud. And yeah, I'm super excited about doing this with her.
Are you playing any more in like while you're here, or just the 2 shows?
I think just the 2 shows I'm playing while I'm here. I mean, it'd be cute to play more before the 6th of March. But yeah, I feel like once we have played the first gig, then we're actually tight, Taylor and me, and then it would be easier. So maybe I should check in with her again. If she's down to play more gigs, because I'd be super down, actually. Yeah, I love playing.
And you'll be in LA, like, towards the end of March, too, right?
Exactly. So I think I'll be leaving around, like, the 8th of March, and then I'll be gone for... That's the thing. I would like to be gone for 2 weeks, but I can probably not afford it. So I think I'll be just traveling for 5, 6, 7 days, and then I'll be back.
Is there anything else that you want to add about yourself or Rose Rage, or anything you have coming up?
There are some gigs coming up in Berlin. So whoever will be in Berlin in April or May can get in touch, and I can gladly tell you the dates. But other than that, like, so one thing that's important to me is to like empower other women and like other queer people and like non-binary people, everyone who's basically not a cis male, to pick up an instrument and start playing music. It doesn't matter what it sounds like. It doesn't matter what it looks like. If you feel it, people will feel it.
Thank you so much, Beccy. Thank you for coming over and talking to me.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me to your home, and I really appreciate it. I feel it's always very intimate when you let someone you don't know into your home. I really appreciate that, I was able to come to your sweet home today and do this interview with you here. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Of course.